On this episode of On the Mic with Mike and Moose.
The views of Mike and Moose do not necessarily reflect the views of our respective employers, churches, or communities. Over the course of our discussion, we may speak on race, religion, politics, sex, and other subjects that might be uncomfortable for others to hear. Viewer listener discretion is advised. Welcome to On the Mic with Mike and Moose. This is your boy Moose coming to you not from my normal place, but at my work, just outside of Birmingham, Alabama.
Same with me. I'm at the church office right now in Moore, Oklahoma, the tornado capital of the world.
Man, we're just I'm so not used to it. We've done 8 episodes now, and
Yep.
it seems like all 8 have been in our homes. And so
Yep.
this is just a complete different setting for us.
Yep.
One of the things that I love your little setup in your office. I'm in my office here at work. One of the things that I did do is I have a flag up behind me, and there's significance to that flag. The flag is the flag of Italy. And for those of you that have been following me on social media or you know me in real life, you know that back in April, we had a couple, Massimo and Lydia, who came and visited for us for 2 weeks. And one of the things that we're hoping to do in January of 2026 is go and do a mission trip with them in their hometown. They live in Empoli, Italy, and they have their churches in Silvigliana. So I just want to put that up there, and Mike and I discuss. I'm probably going to start selling some stuff online for fundraising for that trip, and I'm going to be doing some different social media bursts on that. So, speaking of which, Mike,
Yeah.
merchandise.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're going to
So
be getting some stuff out there soon, and I know you're working on that side of it.
not only for this podcast, but
Yep.
also for the Rooted, which is our Discord family.
Yep.
And we're just playing around with some things right now and talking about getting that. What we're planning on doing with the Rooted stuff and with the On the Mic stuff is like the On the Mic merchandise would pay for what we do here, and then the rest would go to ministry. And the
Yep.
same thing with Rooted, correct? Is that what we're kind of?
That's correct. Rooted would cover costs and ministry only. Would not go to Mike Pickett or to Moose. It would go all, and then we could bless other families with some different things going on. So,
Yeah, I was thinking we could do stuff like that, or if we wanted to do like fundraising for mission trips. I wouldn't take
oh
any
yeah,
money from that for mission
yeah.
trips. If there's somebody that says, "Hey, I want to go do this," and we can do it, I think it'd be great to do to be able to spread the word of God. So,
Yeah, I think
um,
that's a wonderful idea. And then people were able to show their love for something that's near and dear to their heart. So,
man, that Discord is jumping. It's more and more people every day.
oh yeah,
Seems like.
we're right at 400 as we're recording this right now. I would say out of those 400, we have an active 125, 150, but there's still a lot of people that are in there that's maybe just watching, and that's okay.
That's fine with me too. And man, your social media is blowing up right now. I mean, people are
It's
on fire for
crazy.
God. I mean, some of the things we've seen in the last couple weeks. I mean, people following you, people commenting, people coming to Christ. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, and you missed it last night, bro. Do you know who came in at? Did you hear?
Uh,
Randy Rogers came in and mixed some stuff, joined the live with us, and did some remixes of the different songs. And we had like a little DJ Love and
little jam
Jesus dance
session going
party.
on.
It was amazing.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So, good deal. So, if you hadn't followed us yet, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can like and subscribe, share this out to us. We're trying to grow this platform for the kingdom. We also have Facebook and Instagram, and we just want to make sure that we get the word out. We also in the links both on all three on Podbean, YouTube, and Instagram, or sorry, Apple
Yeah.
podcast. We'll have all of our links on there. And the reason I'm doing this at the front end instead of the back end is this is going to be a two-part episode. They're going to drop on the same day. There are two parts, so we'll do this for part two as well, but we'll do that on the back end.
And
So
y'all, this is a very heavy one too.
this is
So
a very heavy one. Today we're going to talk about race relations, and as two men growing up in the deep South,
yeah.
this is something that we have not only had to navigate for 40+ years. It's something that we have to be constantly reminded of from people who are not from the area.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to. This is something that sparked from a conversation. I'm sure you have many stories as well.
Yeah.
What was it you said about Sundays in the South when it comes to race relations?
Oh, it's the most segregated day of the week where we segregate more into our groups into different churches than any other day of the week.
So I mean, it's you know that is of course I would say is what I would call self segregation.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Doesn't make it any
chosen.
better. It doesn't make it any better. We need to be worshiping together and
Yeah,
understand that we have the same God
yeah,
and exercise that right.
yeah,
Race relations part one. I titled this "Are You Prejudiced?" And this stems from a conversation that I had a few years ago with a fellow, I guess say coworker of mine. Um, we were in a group, and a couple of the guys were talking about how they had to go to Bluefield State University the next day. We were getting ready for a football game, and I, for those of you who don't know, I lived in West Virginia for a year, and there's a lot of smaller colleges. Like if you're from West Virginia, you probably don't know stuff like Oakwood University in Huntsville, or Oakwood College or Selma, or Talladega College. All these, it's more just that, but those are the ones I just named were SBCU, HBCU, sorry, the Historical Black Colleges University. So when I go to West Virginia, I am starting to learn all these different schools. I
yeah,
mean, I lived in Morgantown. I went to West Virginia University.
yeah,
We're 20 miles north of Fairmont. There's Fairmont State. But then there was one called Bluefield State University. Never heard about it before in my life. So I'm there. I'm taking some classes on instructional communication, and I want to know more about, kind of what Bluefield State's about. So I do start doing some research on it, and I found that this is the most interesting fact of any HBCU that I know. HBCUs, of course, are historically black colleges, universities, and when many of them were founded, they were founded because Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896, was still in effect. That's the separate but equal Supreme Court decision, and so many historically black colleges, universities were founded at that time as a way for higher education for the African American population. And so you got places like here in Alabama, you got Tuskegee, you got Alabama State, Alabama A&M, Miles College, Stillman College. I think you probably don't know this, Mike, but Alabama has more historically black colleges, universities in it than any other state in the
yeah.
nation.
And
But
some of the
they're
best
all
drum
over this.
lines in all of the nation too. If you've ever seen the drum line battles there in Montgomery,
Oh yeah.
it is amazing. I've been able to be a part of that. And that is one, this is a very heavy thing, but that is one of the coolest things. Alabama's probably got the best drum lines out of all the historical black colleges.
So, anyway, so going back to this, so I grew up in a state that has lots of HBCUs. But then I looked up Bluefield State in West Virginia. And if you've never been to West Virginia, I want to say at one point in the last 15 years, it was 95% Caucasian,
Yeah.
white Americans that live there. And Bluefield State has been deemed the whitest HBCU in the nation.
Yeah.
80% of its students, roughly 80%, that may have gone down, may have actually gone up recently, are white and go to an HBCU. About 15% are African American, and then the other 5% are different ethnicities. And so I bring this up to the group. I was like, hey, here's an interesting fact about, and I'm a nerd like this. We'll talk more about my trivia nerddom in upcoming episodes. And so we talk about this, and then as we're walking out, an older gentleman who's mine and Mike's parents' age, in
Yeah.
that range. He comes to me and he says, "Are you prejudiced?" And it kind of just like took me off, you know, took me out of my shoes. I was so caught off guard by it. And so, I put my arm around him and I said, "Look, man," I said, "I'm not my dad's generation. I learned to grow up and go to school with, and I have, African American friends, I have Indian friends, I have Muslim friends,
Oh yeah.
Arab friends, I have Hispanic friends. I would much rather have an open conversation and be open with, something like that than be covert about racism or race relations. I don't consider myself a racist, but it just, you see so much of that stuff where people have innuendos
Yep.
that it just, you sit there and say, why don't you just come out and say it?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was not bringing up the fact that Bluefield State was, 80% white as like a feather in my hat. I just thought it was an interesting fact,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I just, it just kind of sparked the conversation that I wanted to have, and this is actually one of the topics that I had in my original podcast idea when I was thinking about
Yeah.
doing one by myself.
Well, I think you know this. I grew up in Mississippi to the age of 12. And many of you have heard of Mississippi Burning. It was a movie, a book, but it was a real life situation that happened. And I'm not going to get deep into that story. Look it up, watch the movie. Please, no disclaimer with it. It gets really real. It uses words in there that we don't use anymore. But it talks about how racist the state of Mississippi was. The state of Mississippi was, if I remember correctly, the last state to remove the rebel flag out of the state flag itself, and it was a fought over thing. And I'm not here to debate the rebel flag. Some people think this or that, but either way, Mississippi was the last stronghold for that because how steeped in racism Mississippi really is. We can say, well, racism is gone, and we could try to uh, put a silver lining to it. But let's be honest, racism has been passed down from generation to generation. It is still around in the deep South, but it's become smarter. It has become more cheeky. It has become something that is more if I can put a name to it, an intelligent racism. And so passive aggressive, there we go. That's the word. And it's done by how the interactions happen on the daily basis.
Mhm.
Now, with my parents, they would just say the N word and not worry about who heard it. Even if it was black people that heard it, they did not care. I remember when I was 3 years old, Moose, my parents tell this story all the time. I went into a convenience store, and my parents didn't call black people by their name; they called them the N word. And I'm just being honest. And God, God forgave my parents eventually. God met them, and they had a heart change. But when I went into the convenience store at the age of 3, uh, an older black man looked down at me and said, "Hey there, little boy," and I said, "Hey there, N word," and kept walking. Well, as a
You didn't know better,
3 year old,
but you didn't know better.
I didn't know any better.
What you've been taught.
Yeah, but then when I got around to first or second grade, I saw their faces when I would say the word. I was like, something's wrong here. Because here's the deal: in our churches, it was never preached against. It wasn't, especially in white Southern Baptist church back in the day. Y'all, just like Moose, I was SBC. We could talk about the SBC because I've been a part of it. But back then, the SBC was more of a racist denomination. It probably is. It probably isn't anymore. But back then, you didn't have black people come into a white SBC. So racism was never dealt with. It was never something that was even brought up.
It's almost like it was condoned.
Yeah, it was. And so it was almost applauded, applauded, condoned, celebrated. You could add all the the different words to go along with it. But I remember I was in first and second grade, and I had said it again to a kid, and they started crying. I said, something's wrong, even in my young mind. And I went back and I talked to some other people, and I found out how bad it really was. And at that point, I had a mission in life to never ever have those type of thoughts again, or to have those types of words come out of my mouth. And even with my parents, I went home and told them, and they weren't supporting of that. They're like, "Who taught you this?" And
Of
it was,
course.
yeah, it was it. And so I had to deal with that, and I have fought racism ever since I've been in ministry. I pastored in the Deep South. I had a church in South Carolina where we started getting some African Americans started to attend our church. Now, this was a very rural South Carolinian church with no black people whatsoever. And they start coming. And I remember one of them came out there and they saw a few of them in the gym. And he says, "What are those N words doing in our gym that we built?" Not only did they say that, but they were deacons, they were board members.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, oh, my goodness, and they thought that this was respectful. I had one of my students who came and did a men's ministry thing from when I was a youth pastor. He came and spoke. His name was Rashad Graham. And he got up and he spoke and he did a great job. And one of my deacons stood up and said at the end, "Man, that was a great devotion. That was one of the best devotions or sermons I've heard from a colored person in my whole life." He said that in front of everybody.
You could hear a pin drop, couldn't you?
Rashad, I looked over at him because I was horrified. And Rashad said, "Don't worry about it, Pastor. I've heard worse." And that broke my heart right there.
Mm-hmm.
That let me know that racism, and this was 2018. We're too far removed from 2018. And so that happened then. And it still happens today. Hey, go on TikTok, go on YouTube, Facebook, you'll see racism rampant on social media. And you'll see that passive aggressive, intelligent racism, as if we call it that. And so I don't know if you had this, Moose, growing up. My parents said there's a difference between an N word and a black person.
Heard that multiple times.
And I thought that was true until I was a little bit older as a kid, that first or second grade. And it's something that's steeped into white culture, Southern America, that there is the N word and that there's black people. And if you're black, I am sorry that I'm sorry. I've repented a long time ago, and probably Moose has too. But I'm telling you, white people are more racist than what you thought back then. They might have covered it up some, and we might get some hate because of these videos. And I'm okay with that, because we need to pull the sheets off, literally, the sheets off racism, to show it and expose it for what it is. And it's not godly. It's not godly. And this is my belief, Moose. I don't think we're going to have a good excuse to stand before our Lord and say, "Well, I didn't know any better." Our generation knows better.
Mm-hmm.
Our generation, now our grandparents, that might be a little different. I think there might be a little bit more grace. I don't know. I'm not God. But with our generation in 2025, and if we stand before God, why were you racist? I don't think we're going to be able to have an excuse of why we have an allowance to be racist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you think about that, but I feel like.
So the thing about me and you is we're born, for you probably less than 5 years after. I think it was Boston was the last integrated school system.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, it was City of Boston. But we're less than 10 years from the last schools being integrated. And we're less than 20 years, 15 to 20 years from stuff like what you saw in Birmingham, which
Are you?
I grew up. We moved here when I was 2 the
Yeah.
Birmingham area. And I think, and we'll get more into this in the part two, but I just remember I grew up, my stepdad was not, it's just so weird. My stepdad was from New York. Okay.
Yeah.
He grew up in Washington Heights, which is the northern part of Manhattan
Yeah.
near the Bronx, which now is like Dominican and Puerto Rican and African American. It's just north of Harlem. It's north of Harlem,
Yeah.
and so he moved out Alabama in the '80s, and I've never been around a more racist person than he was,
Wow.
and so I grew up with this in my household. Like I heard this, and I just remember being embarrassed.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid. One of the ballpark that I played baseball at was an all white ballpark. I think more of it was because the proximity to the communities around it.
Yep.
But I remember we had a kid come in and he was going to play ball with us, and I don't know what happened with the paperwork or something like that, but he was black, and we didn't have a black kid in our league. We had a couple Asian kids in our league. We didn't have a black kid in our league. And my stepdad, who was an alcoholic, and there was many times that I got in the car with him when he had been drinking.
Oh, wow.
I remember going up to the ballpark and being horrified, and I'm like 8 years old, and he's telling other guys, other dads,
Yeah.
"Can you believe that my coach drafted, the little draft? It starts with a P. I'm not going to talk about. I'm not going to say it, but it's got multiple syllables in it, and it's essentially a term for a derogatory term for a black baby, toddler, infant."
Oh, yeah.
And he says this, and I didn't know what it meant at the time, but I knew that it was not right. And I just remember looking at there was a guy named Jason, his dad, just kind of the look on his face, just like, really, did you just say that to me? But Frank
Yeah.
had been drinking. My stepdad had been drinking, and so of course, loose lips when you have alcohol on. He didn't
Oh,
care
yeah.
what. So, I do think that there's a lot of racism out there. But I do think there's racism everywhere.
Oh, I do
I
too.
just
Yeah.
think it's the magnitude that you see here in the South is due to the population density of African Americans and white
Oh, yeah.
people. Because if you look like a population density map, of the 12% African Americans in the nation, there's something like 75% of them are what's considered the southeast. So, when you get up to the major cities, but I have talked to people in other parts of the United States that they're the same. When you talk about the intelligence,
Yeah.
they're definitely doing that kind of stuff. So, but really, I do think that our generation is not as bad as the previous generation, and I hope
No.
that our kids' generation is not as bad as what our generation is, so we can bridge that divide. So, I go to Southern Baptist Church. I know the history of the Southern Baptist Church. We're starting to see African Americans in our church. We don't have a lot, but we do have some. We have a couple families. Great
Yeah.
people. They're active. Like one of the guys, he's on our golf cart ministry. So somebody needs a ride on Sunday morning. And it's raining. He'll get on a golf cart and bring them to the front door. One plays in our worship band. We have some others that are active in choir and life groups and D groups and discipleship groups and everything. So I do think that things are turning.
Oh, yeah.
And I think what gets me a lot is because I'm a 43-year-old white male, and I'm from Alabama, people just automatically assume that I have these thoughts. And I get that question, or I get the the assumption, the inference that because I'm white, I'm a white male from Alabama, that this is the way I am.
Yeah.
I turn around, I tell people, And I hate that people try to use this as like a sign that you're racist. But one of my best friends is an African American male.
Yeah.
We grew up playing ball together, football together. I was the center on our high school football team. He was the left guard.
Oh yeah.
We were captains on the football team together. We worked out together. We got in trouble. We had to run stadiums together. We kept up all these years after high school, 25 years. I got pictures of us when we're 17, 18 years old. I got pictures of us when we're 43.
Oh wow, that's so
He
cool.
was in my wedding.
Yeah.
You know, so just because you meet somebody from Alabama does not necessarily mean that they're prejudiced or racist. We're all
Or
going to be
Mississippi.
prejudiced at some point.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think that ethnocentrism is a very valid concept, which is essentially, um, you know, ethnocentric. Like ethnocentric means just kind of like what your ethnicity is, and kind of being not necessarily
Yeah.
proud, but you kind of look out for your own interests. But I do my best to try to combat that feeling of people thinking that just because I'm a white male from Alabama that I'm racist and that all people
Yeah.
white in Alabama or the South are racist. I would love for more African Americans to come to my church.
Yeah.
I'm director of men's ministry at my church. We have an event August 10th. We're doing a tailgating event. We're going to be doing some football officials. I got 5 of them on a panel, 3 of them which are African American, 2 of them are pastors. And I've got a panel of coaches, and I made sure that one of our coaches was African American because I wanted to have a good representation of who's coaching in our area and who's officiating in our area.
Oh yeah.
And that we're not afraid to bring in, you know, all colors into our church walls.
I think one of the biggest problems, Moose, that we saw in the church culture today, and there is a difference in these two words, even though they have been placed almost as synonymous, is we do not want a multicultural church. We want a multi-ethnic church.
Mm-hmm.
They have been lumped up as the same thing, completely different.
Yeah.
What has happened is when we try to be multicultural, we'll placate to either side. But when we become multi-ethnical, what we do is we try to bring all colors, all creeds together underneath one roof with one culture, not a white one, not a black one, you know, the
A
list could
Jesus
go on.
culture.
A Jesus culture. That's it. That's it. And that's what's important. That's why you see the segregation, I believe, also is because there is white church and how it's done. And guys, I'll go ahead and say it, and y'all can put stuff in the comments all you want to, but white church, y'all, can get boring. Let's be honest about it. We can learn from our brothers and sisters that are African American to liven up just a little bit. Praise the Lord. And that's something that when you have multi-ethnic, that you are learning from one another, not having multiple different cultures to where you're just trying to do this, and this, but where you learn and grow and it becomes a hodgepodge of everything placed together. And it's one of the most beautiful things if you ever see it. Like if you come to our church here in Oklahoma, you're going to have Latinos in our church. We've got African Americans. We've got Africans. People from Africa itself that are coming to our church.
Y'all have any natives in your church?
We do. My wife being one of them. My wife is native, y'all. And so my wife is from the Lumbee tribe out of Pembroke, North Carolina. But out here, we have quite a few natives. In Oklahoma, we moved here 3 years ago. We have the largest density, the largest population of natives in all of America. Now I'm talking about Native Americans. I'm not talking about indigenous people. If you go to Canada, Alaska, I think you'll probably have a little bit more in different places. But here in Oklahoma, around this area, you have the most Native American population in all of America.
And there's a whole like the hodgepodge of tribes. There's
Yeah,
Choctaw,
yeah.
Chickasaw, I'm sure there's
Chippewa.
Apache, Comanche.
Yeah. And so my wife works for IHS, which stands for Indian Health Services. And she works for them. And here's what's wild. You'll go there, and if you're trying to base people upon color, because you cannot by the way that they look, with the Native Americans, there are African American Native Americans, there are Caucasian Native Americans, there are Latino Native Americans, there are Native Americans that are Native Americans, 100%. And so you cannot go to IHS and say, well, that person's Native and that person's not. They go by the blood work. They go by if they have that ID card, and that's done by blood work and by proving their lineage. So what I love about that is that if you are racist, you won't be able to know who's what. And it really messes with someone. And my wife talks about it all the time. You don't know who's what, except for the ones that are native. You can
Right.
tell the difference. But, and that helps so much. My wife helped me. Y'all, when I say I am the whitest of the whitest of the whitest, I did my 23andMe and Ancestry.com. I am 91% UK, and that's Welsh, Scottish, Irish, England, and then I am
The other
9%.
9% Scandinavian.
Yeah, 9% Scandinavian.
You got Viking in you.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
But I have nothing else. I am white. I am DNA white, and so my wife, who is native, had helped me even when I was younger to even get through some other stuff. My mom and dad used to tell me this. If I liked black people growing up, I was considered what was called a in lover. That was by my parents, y'all. My parents. And they said, you don't want to be labeled that in the South. So what did I do? I found a Native American girl and fell in love with her and brought her home to my family. My father-in-law, his name is James. He might be watching this. He looks like he could be African American himself. He is that dark. And it really did a work on my parents. My son married a 100% fully Latino Mexican woman. Her name is Nora. I love my daughter-in-law, but we have broke that thing down completely in our family.
You got to get better with that Spanish then.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not good. Nora, if you're watching this, you know how bad I am. So,
Well, look, I appreciate you wanting to talk about this, and we're not sitting here trying to say, look at us, we're not racist. We just run into it every day, and like I said, there are parts of this nation that are just as racist. But I really think that because of the density and the population density in the southeast, you just see it more often.
yeah.
But I do think we're making good strides. But it's not like it's gone away. So
Well, I would say this too, Moose. If we're completely honest, I'm not going to lie and say I did not have to fight through some things in middle school and high school because of the way I was raised.
no,
I'm not going to say that time in elementary school I was 100% good. I
right,
had to fight my family, and I went back and forth because I thought I was going against my family. But
right.
I never did anything insane or said anything, but I had to battle some stuff until I finally put it underneath the blood of Christ. Because there were times that I would say, well, maybe my parents are right, when I was younger, and God had to get a hold of me. So if you're watching this out there and you might say, well, I still struggle with it. Guess what? Put it underneath the blood of Jesus. I'm telling you, he can heal you. He can make you whole. He can take that racism, even if it's a little bit that's left in your heart, and he can pull it right out, and he can make you better for it.
All right, well, let's we're gonna kind of stop here. We got part two coming up. We appreciate you listening, and just be on the lookout for part two.
Thank you.